Let me change the question. Who's more influential? The barber or the doctor?
Yeah. Okay. When you put it like that, it's definitely the barber.
Ooh, I want them bad like a daddy, yeah. Oh, let's do it like Flagger, yeah. I'm kicking flavor, no saga, yeah. Hey, I like them blues. I might go Janet like Jackson. I got them options, yeah. It's all about progression. Life is like a blessing. Everything a win, loss is like a lesson. Ooh. Yeah, ain't no time for stressing. I've been really stacking. Ooh. Yeah, if you wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Black man, white coat, shit, we up right now, yeah. You gotta set you a goal.
Hey guys, real quick, Dr. Dale here. All right, so I want you guys to do me a favor. Before you start this episode, please hit that pause button and click subscribe or click follow or click like, whatever it is. We work really hard to bring you guys this good information to uplift the entire community, and we really appreciate you guys supporting our efforts and our work. Love you guys. Enjoy the episode. What is up, family? I'm Dr. Dale, the author of How to Raise a Doctor, the author of PreMed Mondays, Black Men and White Coats, and the Dr. Doc Children's series. And of course, you listen to the Black Men and White Coats podcast, a place where Black clinicians have the platform to share their stories with listeners like you. Man, I am super excited about today's episode. It's something completely different, completely new. We've never done anything like this on Black Men and White Coats in the past. So today's going to be the very first ever episode of Black Men and White Coats that we're actually doing a dialogue instead of a monologue. So usually you guys know the whole purpose of the platform is to let other docs tell their docs, not just doctors, actually nurse practitioners, PAs, anybody in healthcare. We let them tell their own stories, right? So I just normally just be quiet. I don't say anything. I just let them spill out the beans and say their entire story. But today we're going to do something a little bit different, right? We're going to do something a little bit different. And before I introduce you to my guy who's here on the show with me today, let me remind you guys, everybody who's a pre-medical student, make sure you check out PreMedMondays.com. PreMedMondays.com. What we do on PreMed Mondays is we offer you guys coaching services. So we make sure that every pre-medical student has the opportunity to get the best guidance that we can possibly give you guys and help you along your journey to medical school. And we do that for a crazy affordable price. So nobody can say that money is a limitation for them whatsoever. Every Monday night, you're on a video call with me, with Dr. Daniel, or with a medical student coach, one of us coaches, and our job is to help you be successful. And also, if you're in the field of healthcare, if you're a doctor or a nurse, anybody in the field of healthcare, or if you're in the pre-health journey, make sure you join diversemedicine.com. www.diversemedicine.com. And there you got a whole community of people who are just like us, who are doing our best to help you guys be successful and make it into this field of medicine, right? PreMedMondays.com, diversemedicine.com. Excited to connect with you guys on that. All right. Now, let me introduce you to my man, my guy, my homie, Dr. Stephen Noble. Now, you guys probably already know Dr. Noble. At least I hope you do. If you do, then that will tell me that you're a listener of this podcast, because he did one of our earlier podcasts. Goodness, I don't remember how long ago that was, but he had a great episode. So he's actually on. You remember how long ago that was?
Thanks, Dr. Dale. Good to be here. It's probably been, almost a year now. So
goodness gracious. Yeah. And actually, you guys can't. So, and also, this is probably the first episode that we're actually video recording and audio recording. Those of you guys who are watching the video, you can see the book right here in the background. He's one of those faces on the book. So not just was he on the podcast, he's actually in the book as well. So you can check out more of his story in the Black Men and White Coats book. And he's one of our biggest supporters for our documentary that we're making, right? So he's an associate producer, supporter in our Black Men and White Coats documentary. We had a great time. He flew out to Chicago with us when we did a lot of filming of some pretty key people. We were out there together filming in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, we had a great time, man. You know, Dr. Noble and I were just kicking it and chatting all day long, filming, and then he joined us with the summit on the following day, the Chicago Black Men and White Coats Summit. All right, so I'm super geeked. So what we're going to talk about today is the Black barbershop and healthcare. So we're talking about Black health and the Black barbershop. And you know, real briefly, I'll tell you guys how this episode kind of came about, and then I'm going to hop in and I'm going to go at it with Dr. Noble here. We're going to have some fun, okay? So, man, I don't remember when it was, but one day, you know, Dr. Noble had told me about this thing that he's a part of. Am I okay to say the name of it or no?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Live Chair,
right? So, he's part of, and I'll let him talk more about that later on, but he's part of, I guess I'll call it a group. I don't want to call it a company, organization, whatever we want to call it. It's called Live Chair. And he was telling me about it. I was like, man, yo, that is such a cool idea. And, we need that in the community and such. So we talked about it, and I started learning a little bit more about this idea and the, general concept being how the barbershops can help the healthcare in the Black community, right? And then one day we're chatting, and keep in mind, we're in COVID season, right? So it's COVID-19, everything's on lockdown, nobody's going out. I'm a pulmonary critical care doctor, so I deal with lungs. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon, so he deals with lungs, right? So we're both like heavy in this COVID understanding. And he says like, yeah, Dale, we need to go ahead and open up the barbershops. And I said, what? Open up the barbershops? And, my thought was just, hey, let's just shut down everything, shut it all down. But he was pushing, he was persistent. He said, Dale, let me come on the show. Let's come on the podcast. And let's talk about this barbershop deal, right? And the thing that really got me, at first I was kind of like, I don't know if I want him to come on the show because he might start trying to get people to go out and get their hair cut in the middle of COVID. I don't know how I feel about that. But the thing that got me is he convinced my brother, Dr. Daniel, right? So Dr. Daniel has been doing some stuff with them now and connecting with them. And of course, I wanted to have him on the show anyways. But then Dr. Daniel sent me a message one day like, hey, you need to hear what Steven's got to say about this barbershops and Black communities, even in the setting of COVID. So that's why we're here today. All right. So real quick, I'm going to let you introduce yourself again, kind of, and I'll start picking your brain and all that. And before I do that, I'm going to say, thank you and salute, because I do want to always remember that Navy, he served the country in the Navy. So definitely want to, hats off. I'm wearing my hat right now, but I would take it off if I had a haircut, But thank you, salute. I appreciate your service to the country. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hop in here and talk about some barbershopping and Black health.
Definitely. Well, appreciate it, Dr. Dale, and thank you and salute to you for this platform. I think that the whole movement of Black Men in White Coats, the Rise Up documentary, just really a testament to the need for seeing a problem out there in society and then addressing it. Seeing the problem that there's not enough Black males going into medicine and then addressing that issue is a testament to everybody as far as both entrepreneurship and just how do you fix society and fix life. And one of that is just identifying that there's a problem and going out to fix it. And that kind of led me into medicine from the standpoint of, one of the things that I love to do was just, learn about the human body. And so, given the support of my family and my grandparents, they always kind of pushed me to study that. And then, that led me to go into, the med school. I fell in love with surgery. So I decided to do general surgery, fell in love with cardiothoracic surgery, specialized treatment of heart and lung cancer. And so that really just kind of propelled me into what I do today and what I love to do. And so during that whole journey of, medicine, surgery, residency, fellowship, things of that nature, I met my wife, who's a hairstylist.
I didn't know that part of the story. Okay.
Yeah. So, I knew her in college, and then, got together in med school, and then we got married when I was, in residency in Portland, Oregon. So, during this time, she's a hairstylist, for over 20 years. I'm in medicine, and I would go to her shop, and in her shop, she would have clients come in, and she's, they're, seeing each other every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks or something like that. And they're receiving advice. And my wife is sitting up here giving advice from, love, marriage, relationships, and health. And so it was really seeing that relationship between my wife and her clients that made me think, there's something to here. Plus, they were coming to see her more often than, they may have been seeing their physician. Plus, my wife always talked about, the business of hair has always been consistent. That even in downtime, people find a way to get their hair done. So I was like, there's something to that. And so then it just kind of led me to, sort of the natural association, with the barbershop. And then, thinking about, could healthcare be delivered in the barbershop? And lo and behold, as, I delved into it, I saw that, I was thinking this was a novel idea, but, the research had already been done. First and foremost, the barbershops kind of came out of, or healthcare kind of came out of the barbershops as far as, the first, barbers were called barber surgeons because they were very good with the use of the razor. So, people would go to the barbershop, they'd get a haircut, but they'd also do some kind of basic, surgical, techniques on people. And so that kind of represented
Hold on. I'm gonna call you out on that one. Tell me more about that one. Tell me more about that. About the basics.
So back in the day, leeching was considered to be the treatment and the cure. And so leeching is just basically like bleeding people out and letting the blood go.
So the barbers were leeching people?
Yes. Wow. And so not necessarily, and again, you didn't really see so much of the barber surgeons in, what we would think of present day America. So in the 1800s, and you really didn't see a lot of that. A lot of this was, some of the prehistoric, or not prehistoric, but some of the more ancient sort of times of the barbers, in Egypt and things like that. So we're talking about in the BC sort of era, and then in London, where you had the marriage between the barber surgeons and the physicians, more so in the 1600s and so. But as far as ours,
I hope nobody was leeching people in the 1900s.
Oh no! You really didn't see too much of that. But, so yeah, that kind of represented why the barber pole was the color that it was. Red for the arterial blood, blue for the venous, and then white for the staff when people were grabbing off the stick to get leech.
It's funny, man, because I was looking at that picture just today, and I was wondering about that. The little barber pole you see. So that's what that's.
Yeah. So, if you imagine this being the barber pole, they would just grab on to, while they're, creating the custom skin. And so the white was a bandage that would eventually get put on the wound after the leeching and whatnot. So this whole notion of healthcare in the barbershop, isn't necessarily new. It's really a matter of how do we kind of expound upon it. And so then what you had in the 80s were some physicians, some black physicians that really kind of took a look at, delivering healthcare, if you will, or just monitoring blood pressure, especially blood pressure in black men. They saw that if you associated that monitoring of blood pressure in black men.
But before you delve into that, tell me a little bit more about why is the barbershop so special for the black community? So why, because obviously you come into this from a perspective of we can address some health disparities in the not just underrepresented minority, but specifically we have an emphasis on black discussion right now. So what makes that different from the white community?
Yeah, so one of the first things is that the barbershop represents that entry into entrepreneurship. So after slavery, the barbershop really represents that opportunity for blacks to kind of establish, business. And so you see it as one of the two common meeting grounds in which we as a people kind of had control over the environment. The other major institution is the church. So you really didn't see too many outside influences affecting how we kind of do things inside of the four walls of the barbershop per se, or the church. Now, right after slavery, there were, history shows us that there were some, what we call color line barbers, whereas initially barbers were just cutting the hairs of white men. And so what you saw between the North and the South was that there was a division between black barbers cutting black people's hair versus black barbers cutting white people's hair. But by and large, the barbershop was that first entry into entrepreneurship and thus independency, or some form of financial independency. With that being said, when we start to control our own environment, it started to be that place of refuge, that place in which people would come, kind of hang out, people, where we could come and just kind of relax, and every pun intended, as far as letting our hair down and just being ourselves. And it was really that time in which we didn't have to worry about, what was going on in the world. We walked into the barbershop, kind of the, troubles of the rest of the world kind of went away, during that time where we convened. And what really, for all intents and purposes, is a neutral ground. I mean, yes, there's conversations of politics and race and, sports and heated debates, but by and large, I mean, it's a fairly neutral ground. It's like, Sweden, from the standpoint of in the community, like you can come to the barbershop and, let bygones be bygones.
I like that. And there, it sounds like along with that, there's come a certain level of trust.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone, you don't even have to, folks that have their barber know that there is that level of trust between, hey, that's my barber. I don't deviate from my barber. I'm not switching up going to this barber, within a shop. I'm not going from this barber to this barber to this barber. And so with that, you develop that trust because you're seeing this person, depending upon how often you get your haircut, once every 2 weeks, once a month. And so you start to develop that.
But if you fresh to death, it's once every week.
Right.
You try to keep it fresh, it's once every week. Keep that line right.
Right. And especially down south, when they're getting that razor line out, you're there is that level of trust of like, man, don't cut me. Don't push my line back, don't push my wig back, none of that stuff. So there is that sense of trust. And I think at the end of it, one of the best parts of the barbershop was that whole
Sorry, that don't cut me just made me think about the Malcolm X movie when they're when he's getting the cut with the razor.
Yeah.
All right, my bad.
So,
I'm all over the place.
that's all good. It's just one of those things that at the end of it, what they give you that mirror and you see yourself as, I had one barber say, that always used to say, welcome back. Like, this is the guy that I remember, when you're all nice and cut and, fresh and stuff like that. So it's just a great place. I mean, I think that, most black men and just people in general, when they think about the barbershop, there's pleasant memories more so than negative.
I mean, like you said, man, you got people, I'm going bald now. So you got people like me who just go sit in the barbershop just to hang out. I don't do that anymore. But, you have some people who just go there just to hang out. They knew they weren't getting a haircut. Just go just to hang out, just be in the community and have that conversation. Let me ask you this. Who's more trusted, the barber or the doctor?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it depends on who you ask. I mean, I would, I like to say that the doctor, is trusted more than the barber. But I think that, I'm biased. I'm a physician. And it really comes down to.
Let me change the question. Who's more influential? The barber or the doctor?
Yeah. Okay. When you put it like that, it's definitely the barber. The barber has that opportunity to change people's lives, not that we don't as physicians, but I think because of the constant contact that a barber has. And that's one of the things that I think that because a barber in hairstyles can be more influential because of that consistent contact. That consistency is important to be influential. And we see it with ads all the time. Coca-Cola is going to hit you with several ads, in a minute. And so it's really that ad after ad after ad after ad after ad, in which you get kind of told the same thing over and over again. So if you see that consistent, person, that consistency becomes influential. If you just see your physician once a year, if that one word, that one time that you see that person and that visit maybe 15 minutes, then and gone, you're not going to have that opportunity to be influential. And as much as we as physicians like to think, all my plaques on the wall and all my, degrees may present me as influential, I don't have that constant contact, whereas that barber does. And so they're planting little seeds each and every time. And so if we as physicians have the opportunity to plant those little seeds every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks on a consistent basis, I would say that we could be as influential in a positive way, more so than the barber, because there's a lot of things that, barbers can be influential, globally, that we as physicians just don't have the opportunity, to be. And so I think that it really comes down to the constant, contact that individuals have. And that just goes for any, just life in general, mentorship, parenting, just that constant contact.
All right. So let's hop into this year. So healthcare disparities, of course, there are a lot of things that impacts the Black community at, higher degrees than other communities. How is the barbershop going to help address those specific things, right? So we're talking about, diabetes, coronary artery disease, all these random, conditions, chronic medical conditions. How's the barbershop going to attack those things? How do we do this?
So I think we got to leverage, the things that we know about the barbershop and people in general, just, and kind of meet people where they're at. I think, one of the first ways that the barbershop is able to tackle it is understanding that this is understanding the environment. And first and foremost, the environment is an environment in which people feel comfortable. I think that when true healthcare is best when both parties, the patient, the provider system are both in places in which you feel comfortable. All too often we meet patients when they're least comfortable. I know you as well as myself, a lot of times, I tell people when they see me in clinic, they say, I never want to see you again. And I tell them, I totally understand, because when I meet people, they're truly the most uncomfortable, the worst pain in their life, the worst chest pain in their life. They have lung cancer, they're uncomfortable. But at the barbershop, people are comfortable. And when people are comfortable, they are vulnerable to either tell you things about themselves that they may not tell other people. That gives us a way to get into mental health, as well as when they're, when you test someone or get someone's vital signs when they're in a comfortable state, you can kind of get a true sense of what their blood pressure is. For example, we all know sort of the white coat phenomenon, in which, you get your blood pressure taken, maybe in the doctor's office, and it may be 15 to 20 points higher simply because of the stress that is associated with, the white coat, having to get to a doctor's appointment, having to get through traffic, having to get there on time, sitting there, you're being rushed, you don't want to be late. You don't necessarily know what you're going to be told by the physician. And so your blood pressure may be several points higher than what it actually is. However, you may get treated for that elevated blood pressure. You may get put on medications that you may not necessarily need to be on. And that's just a snapshot in time. That's one vital sign, that one blood pressure at one time. Whereas if you take your blood pressure at the barbershop, a place that's comfortable, a place that's consistent, and you're relaxed, you may find that first the blood pressure may be lower than what it initially was. And then the other thing is that as you check it over time, it may not have been truly as high as it really was.
So in this situation that you're describing right now, you per se wouldn't improve the treatment of a medical condition. What you might do is you might decrease the need of excess expenditure. So, you might prevent people from having to spend money on meds they don't need. You might prevent these adverse drug reactions, things of that sort.
Correct. Yeah. So that's one, sort of immediate, sort of result. The second thing is, being able to connect that individual, with the appropriate healthcare provider. So let's say, the blood pressure truly is high. So then how do you take that information and then filter it back to the healthcare system is one avenue in which, a lot of these, studies that looked at the relationship between barbershops and healthcare really worked out, was that there was a relationship between the barbershop kind of served as that healthcare liaison, kind of connecting the patron or the patient to the healthcare system. And so, then the third thing is just really the support that a barber can give.
So let me go back to that second thing. So how do you do that? Because, like you said, the idea is not novel, right? I'm thinking back to when I was in med school. We go to the barbershop and we try to do blood pressures and all this jazz. And actually, I remember my barber, I was a third-year med student when his wife came in and had their baby. So I remember I was on my OB-GYN rotation helping deliver his baby. I'm like, man, that's my barber, yo. So that was pretty cool. But then, we would go to the barbershop and we would, we would do these things like these screening type of stuff. But we didn't do anything with it. Like you're saying, we had no real link. We hadn't thought it through to get that back to the doctor. We just said, hey, your blood pressure is this. You should go talk to somebody. That's all we could offer. So my first question there will be, does that work, right? So if I take your blood pressure and just say, hey, you need to go talk to somebody, is that, how many times out of 10 is that person actually going to do that? And the second question is, if that doesn't work, what does work?
Right. So yeah, that's a great question. I think that's where some of the initial studies of B. Wayne Kong as well as Dr. Victor, these individuals that in the 80s and then also in the 70s really took a look at using that relationship. How do you establish a relationship with a healthcare system or a healthcare network? And when there's a healthcare network and providers that are kind of linked in with the barbershop and you can act according to that data, that's when patients are best served. In addition to having these liaisons that can help them, remind them to get their blood pressure checked. Did you take your medicine? Are you compliant? All this other stuff. And having the barbers kind of serve hand in hand, if you will, with the healthcare community. And that's truly where it helps. To just capture the information and not do anything with it, it doesn't do as much justice for the community unless you actually do something with that data. And so, with my association, so there's LiveShare, and LiveShare is a startup company that really looks to serve as that. Mm-hmm.
Before you go here, let me just tell everybody, this is not like any sort of like commercial promo, nothing like that. Please. He's not paying me to do this, none of that stuff. He just told me he had a fascinating concept for the way we could address disparities in the Black health community, and I think I think the concept makes sense. So I wanted to bring him on here, let him chat about it. But just so everybody knows, this is not like a big promo thing we're doing for LiveShare or anything of that sort, but he's just going to talk about his experience and what he's going through and, what he's part of, and that's LiveShare. All right, my bad. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. So, with that, it was, it got back to the whole story of me and my wife. And, I'd already, thought about, the entrepreneurial aspect of, doing something that both my wife and I can kind of, enjoy, but yet at the same time be like marriage of, our careers. Offering healthcare at the, hair salon or the barbershop. And so, I had put it on the back burner, and then lo and behold, I saw something on another friend of mine, another CT surgeon. We always had these conversations in regards to entrepreneurship, and he had presented, this newspaper article, and it was of, LiveShare, this, healthcare being delivered in barbershops. And I had seen this done before in LA and other places. But what was different was the platform that was used, the use of technology and how integrated that core piece of healthcare was. And I thought that was something that really just made a whole lot of sense as far as, first of all, you have a scheduling and booking sort of platform and app. So you're capturing data, you're getting information of your patient or the client. And then they're being able to get do a blood pressure at the barbershop. And what happens is that information is recorded, and that information is felt that if we can give that to a provider or some sort of health network, that can help all those other things that we discussed.
So the scheduling, you're scheduling for your cut, right? You're not scheduling for blood pressure, you're scheduling for okay.
No. And what it is the blood pressure is essentially a part of the service that you receive.
The barbershop service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
And so, was able to see it in kind of full display as far as out in Baltimore, Maryland, Chanel Shakur, who has a great barbershop out there in Baltimore, Maryland. Check it out if you guys are able to. And so, with that, he's a barber that is really in tune with the need to help his community, both through entrepreneurship, but more importantly for healthcare, and having this notion of if we have a healthier community, we'll have a better community, a more sustainable community. And so with that, he gives talks and kind of encourages people to get their blood pressures checked. And it's that sort of consistency, having that on the mind of knowing what my numbers are. To help decrease, blood pressure, or help decrease rates of hypertension. And what ends up happening is it spawns discussion as far as, what should I be doing to eat right? And when I went out to Baltimore, there was a, 35-year-old guy that, had high blood pressure. I mean, his blood pressure was elevated. And this was kind of like the first time he had ever really had it checked. Kind of led to some discussions between he and I about, what he should do, what his diet should be, what sort of exercises he could do, him to kind of understand what his family history is, going back and kind of finding out what his family history is. And so it really raises the level of discussion, and it allows men to have discussions about their health in a place in which they feel comfortable, in which everyone can kind of participate and learn. And when we as a community are doing something positively, now we can sit up here and positively affect, other people around us by constantly being on our mind of let's all be healthy. If this is just kind of the in vogue thing to do, this is just the thing that we're doing, that we're taking, our health as a priority, which COVID-19 has really hit home as it's imperative for us to take our health as a priority. And if we do it as a community, we'll be better for it.
All right. So now you and I had this discussion. You were trying to tell me that we should let the barbershops be open during the COVID-19 lockdown. And I said, Dr. Stephen Noble, you got to be out your mind. But you're sticking by your guns. So I want to hear, I haven't heard the argument yet. Let me hear the argument.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, the argument for, barbershops to be open in COVID-19. I think that, one is that people are going to get their haircut regardless. I mean, no matter how you leverage it, it's going to happen. This is just, even the president is getting his haircut. All the people that you're seeing on TV are getting their haircuts. Your mayor is getting her haircut, and so people are going to get their haircut. This is a service that's going to be rendered somehow, some way. You just can't prevent that. The second thing is that, we can use, the second thing is in regards to when is it appropriate for the masses to do it. And although I think that barbershops can be open during this COVID-19 season, I'm not necessarily saying it's appropriate for every shop to be open all over, America, especially if we find out, what the certain COVID rates are in certain particular sort of, communities and areas. So I do think that there has to be a interplay and cohesiveness between public health, barbershops, state boards, things of that nature. The third thing is that, the hope was that testing was going to be a lot better than what it has been. And the thought was that maybe we could use barbershops as places to test. And if we could use barbershops as places to test, we could get a better sampling of the community. The thought behind that was that healthcare, traditional healthcare, has always had some barriers for Black and brown people, Black people in particular. And so if you sit up here and say, oh, we're only going to give tests in traditional healthcare facilities, we would miss a large percentage of, of our people and of society at large. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting that a few days ago that, the New York governor, Cuomo, gave the report of their random 3,000 testing across the state, which was done in grocery stores, which, already goes to show that there are places, individuals considering doing mass testing in places that aren't your traditional places of healthcare. What I propose is that if you do it within barbershops, and hair salons, you may capture a different group of people. You're capturing it here at the grocery store, but maybe in other situations, you'll capture a different group of people. And if you can put policies and procedures that help protect both the barber, the hairstylist, as well as the patient, that would be better. Especially, I would contend that the barbershop and hair salon may be better places to capture some of this data than your grocery store, especially because some of the training that goes into barbers and hairstylists through their, state board of cosmetology and barbershops.
Interesting. Okay. So your primary thing isn't necessarily that, man, people got to get their haircuts. You're saying, hey, people are going to get your haircuts no matter what you do anyways, right? And on top of that, we could provide a meaningful service that benefits the healthcare infrastructure, through the barbershops.
Yeah. And I think taking a very, I don't want to say simplistic view of it, but looking, rearranging or restructuring the way that we look at barbershops and hair salons more so as extensions of the healthcare community. How can we foster a relationship between barbershops and hair salons so that they are an extension of the healthcare community? How can we bring them into the fold? It's been done with churches before. It's been done in other institutions, but how can we establish a more formal and structured relationship? And let's be honest, part of the reason why those relationships haven't really kind of developed really comes down to, money and how do you figure out, the payment, the, fee for service, the payment factor, all those sort of things. And so that was really kind of the linchpin in between, a lot of these studies that we saw in which the association works for Black people. But how do you make it work within the healthcare system, which is really, is a fee for service system?
I think this is really fascinating because I don't know this to be true, or it might just be anecdotal, but I feel as though a lot of Black men, at least at some point in time, have considered like cutting hair. Like all of us have asked ourselves that question. All of us have tried to cut, a lot of us have tried to cut our own hair. We try to cut our boys' hair. I'll tell you, my brother cut my hair, Dr. Daniel, he cut my hair from the time we were itty bitty all the way through, till we moved apart from each other. And, I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, at the very start, when we started trying to cut each other's hair, like he cut mine up. I was like, okay, all right, I'm kind of clean. Okay. And it was my turn to cut his hair. So I was cutting his hair. I was feeling good. And he was like, oh, Dale, that's pretty good. Go ahead and stop. But I didn't stop. I was like, nah, I can keep on making it better. And then I jacked it up. I completely messed it up. And then he never let me cut his hair ever since then. So that ruined my barber dreams. But, honestly, I'll ask you the question and tell me about your friends. But I feel as though probably most Black men I know have considered this idea of, hey, can I cut hair? Should I be not saying that they want to be a barber for a profession, but, the barber and the Black community does represent, I don't know what it is, but it represents something where all of us at some point in time question, can I cut hair? It gives you respect, right? So the kid in high school cutting all his boys' hairs, that kid got respect. Like, yo, that's T, he cut everybody's hair, right? So that person has respect. Were you one of those kids you try to cut?
I like you, I try to cut my own hair and it does not go well. It's amazing that as a surgeon, I let the professionals, do their job, and these individuals are professional. And the reason why they hold the status that they do is these individuals create, beauty. They create, what we, they create a better version of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And so when you can sit up here and, walk into a barbershop and, you're kind of looking all disheveled and whatever, and then walk out with that fresh cut, that, person that has just molded you into something great. And these guys, guys and gals mold you into a better version of yourself. And for that, sense of pride, it's very powerful. That's very influential to be able to, within 20 to 30 minutes, instill a pride and good feeling about that person, that they may not have had 30 minutes ago, but when they see that look in the mirror, and that is having a 3-year-old, that takes you back to being a 3-year-old, that whole ego, centric self of looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, I love what I see. I love what I see. And that's what, what the shop and the salons provide you. And that feeling is, links you to that individual. I mean, you look at your barber like, yeah, that's my guy. And a lot of people, they have fond memories about their barber. I mean, my wife gets great gifts from her clients, and I mean, they still remember, they call her up, they, you know, are willing to like travel all over for her to do their hair, because it is, you know, you can't just trust your hair to just anybody. And there's horror stories of hair, you know, people losing their hair, you know, getting their line messed up, trying to go to another barber. So when you find that person that you like, you know, it can be life changing.
Yeah, they learn the shape of your head and everything, so they know how to move those blades. All right, so we're gonna have to wrap up here. But what I'm hearing is that the Black barbershops, and maybe not just Black barbershops, maybe all barbershops, but specifically in the Black community, at least, as a potential start, because of the importance of the barbershop in the Black community, the Black barbershop needs to be an extension of healthcare, and there needs to be. And it sounds like you guys are working on it. I don't know who else is out there working on this concept, but, you know, somebody needs to figure out at least some sort of reimbursement platform, something to make it worthwhile for people to try to actually solve this problem. Because like I said, people have been thinking about this forever. My uncle's in New York, and, you know, he's got projects. He's been doing this. I know a lot of people who do this thing, but how are we going to be able to turn it into a real infrastructure, you know, a real system that is sustainable across the country, in cities, every major city across the country, so we can actually use that input data to impact population health. I like the idea. I'm a fan. Yeah. Black barbershops, extension of the healthcare. I'm a fan. I'm gonna give you a last word here, then I'm gonna wrap it up for this episode. And you know, this episode again is non-traditional, but it's making me think about us doing more episodes like this. Black Men in White Coats, our purpose, our focus is really always to encourage the next generation to become doctors. So this episode's a little bit different, but I just want to remind you guys that being a doctor doesn't mean that you're limited to just the operating room of just the clinic, just your patients. Being a doctor, see what Dr. Noble's doing here. He's outside. He's a surgeon. He's outside the OR. He's thinking about other ways that he can help people and impact lives. So all that is part of being a doctor, right? So you might not necessarily always impact a life by giving a patient a medication or by cutting them open and you know, doing a transplant or whatever. There's different ways, different things you can do as a medical doctor to make people's lives better. All right, I'm going to give you the last word, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
So Dr. Daniel Hale Williams was a cardiothoracic surgeon, the first African-American surgeon to perform heart surgery, and is credited as being the first surgeon to perform a successful open heart surgery. Said that if people who don't make provision for their own sick and suffering are not worthy of civilization. And I think during this time of COVID-19, we're being asked, are we worthy of civilization? Are we worthy of being able to have this society, this civilization that we have? And so it really charges all of us to sit up here and look out for our sick and suffering. And I think that this gives us the opportunity to reassess a system, a healthcare system, and ask ourselves, is it as good as it could be? Did it work for everybody? And if it didn't work for everybody, especially for Black people, which we're seeing, what can we do differently? And can we have the healthcare revolution that we need and that we desire? And I think that the Black barbershop and the Black hair salons are one of those institutions that could be at the forefront of this revolution that's coming by.
Thank you, my guy, Dr. Stephen Noble. Thank you for being here on this episode, first of a kind for Black Men in White Coats. And I think you convinced me, my friend. I think you let me know the impacts, the importance of the Black barbershop in healthcare. So thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, man. You've been everywhere lately, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes just to be here and talk to the Black Men in White Coats audience. Also looking forward to your book. I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. So
I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're working out. He's working on a book right now, children's book, and it's going to be inspirational for the kids. So you guys get ready for that. I'm excited. I get to play a small role in helping you make that book come to fruition. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to that book. Dr. Stephen Noble, thank you so very much, everybody, all the listeners. Thank you guys for checking this episode of Black Men in White Coats out. You know, support your barber, support your stylist. You got to keep that going in the community here. Remember, if you're a pre-medical student, check out PreMedMondays.com, PreMedMondays.com, DiverseMedicine.com for everybody else. We will see you online. Thank you. Love you guys.
I want them bad like a daddy, yeah. Oh, let's do it like Flagger, yeah. I'm kicking flavor, no saga, yeah. Ay, I like them blues. I might might go Janet like Jackson. I got them options, yeah. It's all about progression. Life is like a blessing. Everything a win, loss is like a lesson. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, ain't no time for stressing. I've been really stepping. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, if you wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Black men, white coat, shit, we up right now, yeah. You gotta set you a goal.